Hello, I'm Trina Spencer, one of the authors of Story Champs, and I am going to do a quick webinar to help out our friends and colleagues out there who have to take care of the kiddos that they work with. This particular presentation is really going to be about how to do Story Champs through a synchronous session using Zoom, but I have some other things there too in case that's not a possibility for you. Also, keep in mind that people who have already been using Story Champs will benefit from this the most. However, there is some information for those who are not yet Story Champs users or people who cannot get access to their materials. So go ahead and give it a listen. Language Dynamics Group and the authors of Story Champs want to express our gratitude for those people who have been great Story Champs users across the years, and also for all those people, clinicians and teachers alike, who are taking care of the many students across the country at this time of pandemic. We wish we could do more, but we want you to know that we're in this together. Even though most Story Champs users are familiar with the printed materials that come in the box, we wanted to make sure that you're aware of the other materials that also come on the flash drive that can help you do Story Champs virtually. It's going to be easier than you think. Before we get into how Story Champs can be used, let's talk about the medium. Zoom is the one that we've chosen right now, mostly because it's free. You can use it for an unlimited number of sessions and time for one-on-one sessions, which, if you're going to do synchronous sessions, that might be the most useful. And you have about a 40-minute limit on group meetings. Of course, there are some concerns, and a lot of media is hyping the, confidentiality issues or the breach and bombers of Zoom sessions. But there are some strategies to safeguard that. These links are live, so you can click on them and brush up on how to keep your sessions safe so that you don't get any bombers. Now, keep in mind too that we use Zoom, but there are other platforms that do the same thing, something like Microsoft Teams. I'm sure that there's other mechanisms that can be used. So even if you're not using Zoom, the subsequent slides will be helpful for you. Okay, what are you going to need from the Story Champs kit? Well, amazingly enough, there's a Story Champs digital presentation that's on the flash drive in your Story Champs kit. A lot of people miss the flash drive because it's so small, but please don't, because that's where all your most important things are, especially if you're going to do a virtual session. On the flash drive are the illustrations and the icons, as you can see in that little image. There are also story starter illustrations, passage icons, and pattern blocks. So you're definitely going to need these things if you're going to do a Story Champs lesson online. You're also going to need a master lesson plan, and these are also on your flash drive. Let's hope before now you've discovered these master lesson plans, because these are the instructions on how to deliver the lessons, and there are so many different options that they're on the flash drive as opposed to be printed or in a booklet. Okay, so get your master lesson plan from the flash drive. The third thing you need is a Story Champs storybook. Now, this is the one thing that's not available on the flash drive. Okay, so you would either need it um, from your kit, which may be in a classroom or maybe in an office somewhere. But if you don't have it, I'm going to show you a way to get access to the storybook later. All right, but you do need your stories. Because we're going to do a synchronous one-on-one lesson, we're going to use the one-on-one master lesson plans. These are the ones that are in green on the flash drive when you open up the master lesson plan file. One of the most popular lesson plans is 44, where it is the basic story structure and it involves retelling and personal stories. However, you can see master lesson plan from 42 to 57 are all individual lessons, so you can choose whatever you're going to be targeting, whether it's basic story structure, enhanced story structure with the setting and the end feeling, or if you're going to be focusing on causal connections, temporal connections, or advanced story structure. You can also do fictional generation, information, writing, you name it. They're all there. You can make your choice, but remember, those are on the flash drive. Okay, now I'm going to just walk through some tips and tricks, but keep in mind there's another file for you to watch me do a synchronous Zoom lesson with a child. So many of these things can be viewed in that recording. So make sure you watch that too. Okay. All right, so first, I think it's really important to communicate with the parent ahead of time about the expectations you have for the child and the parent. Some kids will be able to manage a one on one Zoom session with a clinician or a teacher without a problem and not require a parent to sit nearby. But you might want to consider that a parent needs to be close by, or you might try something other than a synchronous lesson if the child doesn't have those. Either way, just communicate with the parent and keep in mind that that parent probably has a lot to manage, keeping up with their own employment and managing multiple kids. Um, a second bullet here is in preparation, you need to open up the digital presentation from the flash drive or in a browser and select your story and lesson before you start your Zoom call. You don't want the kids sitting there waiting for you to get those things done. You want to keep the session as short and as efficient as possible. So get get prepared ahead of time and then start the Zoom call. And I did a little practicing of this before I did my first Zoom call or Zoom lesson because I wanted to make sure that I could do it quickly and fluently. Then, once your session starts, remember just because they're at a distance doesn't mean you can't establish some ground rules. Of course, we favor these three: sit tall, listen big, and do your best talking. But if you already have behavioral expectations that the child knows, go ahead and use them and make sure that you praise them and be specific about the things that they're doing or the rules that they're following throughout the session. When you do start your meeting, just start by chatting a little bit with the child because this might be new to them. So you need to explain what's going to happen and what they're going to do since it's a little unusual. You can do that just through the video chat uh, feature. When the child is ready and you're ready to start the lesson, share your screen and make sure you only share the program with the digital presentation in it, like at the website, and not your entire not your entire desktop. It can be overwhelming to the kids. So we want them to just see what it is you want them to see. Then, of course, as you deliver, you just go through the steps of the master lesson plan, starting with modeling the story with the illustrations visible and advance the digital presentation at the right times. Now, you don't advance for every step because some of the steps in the master lesson plan require that you use the same uh, visual supports for multiple steps. So just make sure that you've practiced that or rehearsed it a little bit. And then when you are doing your modeling step at the beginning, you can click and drag the story grammar icons to the right place. They just kind of like quickly click into place. And then you can use the sparkle and connection words that are optional in the system. One of the things I had fun trying out was how to use pictography for drawing children's personal stories. So, retelling is a lot easier because you have the standard digital presentation system and you can just click through them so the child sees them. But if you're going to do the personal stories and adhere to the procedures, pictography is also possible. So, here's what I recommend. Open up a second tab with a digital presentation showing with just the icons. This prevents you from having to go back to the index from the digital presentation, like going into the menu and clicking to get to the spot. This way, it's quickly and easily accessible when you're ready to switch to personal stories. So I also discovered that the annotate feature, not the whiteboard feature, to draw is much better than is much more useful. So on the digital presentation, you can draw using the annotate feature just above the icons where there's some white space. And this is very obvious and can be seen in the video of me doing a Zoom lesson. Be sure to decide on the settings ahead of time because there are many options, and some of the settings are what color the ink is, how wide the drawing or the lines are. So I personally like to have the thin lines for drawing and black ink, but you can decide whatever you want. And there's some other things to be creative too, but you just want to play with those settings and make sure you're comfortable with them before you start. So when you're doing the personal story portion of the master lesson plan, I kind of like to be able to give the kids the pictures that I drew of their stories. So here's a screenshot of the session that I did, or the personal story that the child generated in in the recorded session. So once the child has generated the story and retold it with the pictography and the icon showing, click the save button in Zoom. There's in the upper right hand corner of the little, I don't know, port, I guess. I don't know what I'm calling it. There's a way to just click the save button, and basically it automatically takes a screenshot of the drawings that you just made, right? Later, you can crop the screenshot to remove your web browsers and the extra stuff, right? So it looks like what I've got here on the screen. Then I like to email this to the family to encourage the child to retell their personal story to their family members. So you should do that before you use the erase function in Annotate, because you need to quickly erase the pictures, the quick line drawings that you made, so the child can retell his own personal stories with just the icon. That takes just a couple seconds to erase. Once a child doesn't need the visuals, then you can take them out of the share screen mode so that you're just looking at the child video, face to face, and you can encourage better eye contact and attention and reinforce them socially while they're retelling their own personal story without any visual supports. Even if you are not able to do a synchronous lesson with your kiddos, there are a ton of other materials on the flash drive in your kit. These materials can be posted to an LMS or a learning management system or a Google Classroom or some sort of platform that you are able to give the link to your students and their families. Just keep in mind that these are copyrighted materials and they do not belong on websites that are accessible to all people. But for the most part, classroom specific that require codes or specific links to be able to get into are fine. You can post PDF versions of these things. There are take-home activities. Unfortunately, only the classic stories level A and B are in the take-home activities, but they can still be useful for your younger kids or kids with limited language abilities. You can also have them download and use the word journals if there's specific Sparkle words you've been working on. And of course, writing organizers. These things would be easy for parents to be able to help their kids or have their kids do this during the day. It might be somewhat of an independent activity for them. All right, there are a number of fun little activities that could be used for the same purpose on the flash drive under center activities. One of them is the storybook. These are kind of printable things children draw and then dictate the parts of the story, or they could write their own story and they make their own little book. There's also picture sequencing. These are designed to be printed and cut and then put in the right order. And as a result of its purpose, there's a version that has the icons on them, and there's a version that has no icons. Clearly, the icons will make it easier if the child has some experience using Story Champs. But the version without icons, the child would have to look more carefully at what's going on in the picture to be able to sequence them properly. And then lastly, there's these story strips or storyboards, and these are designed for children to be able to just draw simple drawings to create their own story. Okay. And all of these things are in PDF form and can be posted and printed and used at home. All right, one last thing that is on the flash drive that might be useful to you are the Spot the Sparkle posters. It might be an easier thing for parents to just be on the lookout for words if they're maxed out in other arenas. And this might be a way to just get them to start thinking about using and having kids maybe write sentences with these words. Spot the Sparkle is designed for kids to just raise their awareness of vocabulary and getting practice throughout the day or across the week. Anyway, this is also there's a whole bunch of them for all the words that are in the Story Champs kit or in the Story Champs stories. There's a lot of them. I think almost, I don't even know how many, hundreds maybe. Anyway, they're on the Story Champs flash drive. If you don't already have Story Champs but feel like you could really use it during this time when everybody's at home, please use our discount code so you can get 20% off the cost. Stay home 20, right? This is just for people during this time, and it's the biggest discount we've ever given. We want to make sure people have access to the materials they need to be effective clinicians and teachers during this time. And if you do purchase it today, you will get a quick link to be able to access all the digital materials that you're going to need to get started. We know that there are a number of clinicians and teachers out there that have purchased Story Champs before the COVID pandemic and are unable to get access to their flash drive or their storybook because they can't get into their classrooms or their offices at schools. I'm the same way. I don't have a Story Champs kit at home, so we have to improvise a bit. Anyway, if you want to get access to the digital materials and you already have a kit, click this link. Thank you very much for listening to this short webinar, and we hope that you've had some questions answered and that you can be successful in your jobs going forward. Please, if you have any questions, Doug Peterson and I are certainly open to answering any questions and helping you out any way we can, as well as Mike Peterson, who will respond to the sales at languagedynamicsgroup.com email. Please let us know what we can do for you, and thank you.